Retro.
Yeah.
Electro. Tech.
Oh yeah.
Hey, turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro electro tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Well, hello there once again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Retro Ernest of Retro Electro Tech, and I'm standing here in the intake area of my shop. So you walk in, come through the lobby, here's the intake area, the first thing you see. So I'm going to be unboxing a piece of equipment that was shipped in from New York, and I'm a little concerned about the condition because there's some roughness to the exterior of the box. Some of the tape is coming off in different areas, and I'll go ahead and get into the rest. No major punctures, nothing like that, but I'm a little bit concerned that things were jostled around a bit. So we'll see what the condition is of the equipment and go from there. Also too, and it's a pretty heavy package, so I have it sitting off to the side on a lift table. I think it's a little over 70 pounds, but I'm going to heft it up here on the exam table and process it in and do the unboxing on this intake table because all the other benches in the shop are occupied. And one of these days I'll do a shop tour, but that's going to take some time because that takes time to do and really go through the tools and the test equipment, show the different workstations. I have 4 workstations, 4 workbenches in here currently, not including this, but that's another story. I don't want to digress, but I'll just introduce the intake area, especially for out-of-state clients that ship stuff in that can't make it here in person. Well, this is the intake area, nothing to it. And for some of you out there that work on this stuff, that like to geek out on people's workspaces, and it might give you some ideas for a simple intake area that gets the job done. Who knows, maybe this video might prove interesting, but mainly I just want to unpackage this box and go from there. So I'm going to do that, and on that note, like I said, here's the intake area, and I bring stuff in for the customers, set it on the folding bench. I like it because it's a little folding bench, table, whatever. Stainless steel. It has good capacity, I think like 300 pounds, so plenty. And it came with this little, metal pegboard. Keep a few hand tools in case I have to pull a case off. I very seldom do any work on any equipment on this table other than maybe, like I said, pop the case off. If I need to do a safe power up because all the other benches are occupied, I can do that. Very rarely I do, but I have a little portable current limiter I can bring over here, plug in, do that. A little meter hanging here for probing around voltages in the power supply, DC offset, things like that. But anyways, I'm not going to get all into that, but it's an effective space. Mostly what I do really is, use my high-tech inventory tags because I tag equipment, obviously. Rubber bands for wrapping up the cords. Yeah, you can do a fancy coiling and all that, but whatever, rubber bands work, they're quick. And my magnifying glass when I'm filling out the intake forms, which I keep in this rack up here. Yeah, and I'm honing in on a serial number, especially with my bad eyes. Well, magnifying glass is my favorite tool here, really, on this intake table. And yeah, I have a typewriter in the background. I actually use it. Not afraid of today's technology. I have a computer in the back for ordering parts and searching around for stuff, and uploading videos like this. But otherwise, pretty much, I use it once in a while for just typing up forms. I enjoy it. It's retro. That's my thing. So there's that. So anyways, not much to it. Simple intake area. It's sparse. I don't have stuff all over, to trip on. I keep stuff organized. Fold the table down. It's out of the way. So it works quite well for that. Otherwise, let me go ahead and get this package up on the exam table. Wheel this over, and hopefully the customer will dodge a bullet and there won't be anything damaged. If there is, well, we'll cross that bridge at that time and see what needs to be done and what the plan is. But I'm hoping for his sake that that's not the case. And there you go. So let me go ahead and get this wheeled over and get to it. Alright, so I'm actually going to unbox it just on the lift cart there. Okay, so here we are. The package is on a Lazy Susan on the lift cart. And you can see that that's what pretty much happened. The corner popped off. Tape's lifting up in a lot of spots here. It's, you know, lifting, you know, coming undone from the bottom as well. And it looks like the corners, there's different areas of the box that you can feel some soft spots, okay? You see how the corner's crushing in and it's kind of splitting open a little bit. The cardboard's ripping. You know, I can get my finger up in there and all that. Not a big deal in that respect, getting your finger up in there, but it just goes to show you that, you know, some of the box is breached a little bit. And if you don't really package it as far as the internal packing material, real stout, real hard, you know, good solid foam that, you know, butts right into the corners and all that, then yeah, things like this will happen, soft spots. And when that happens, if there's impacts, then the seams start to split open and all that stuff. So yeah, but anyways, yeah, tape's coming off all over the place. So that just tells me that maybe this box was roughed up a bit, and fortunately nothing punctured all the way through. There's not any big punctures. But if this box started out in better shape than this, for example, and it, again, not a real huge deal, but it's just an indicator of what might have happened. But you probably could see in here maybe that there's this what looks like a puncture that almost made it all the way through. There's a couple little point pressure impact marks. That's what they look like, just like some point pressure. Again, not a big deal in and of themselves, but it might tell a story about how this unit was handled. So next time you see it, it'll be opened up. Take a look at the packaging material inside, see how it looks, and then from there, obviously onto the exam table, where I will make it naked and tell it to open up wide and say, ah. Little pieces of like foam sheets or something stuck down in the sides there. So let me get these out of there. Set them off to the side over here. Let me see here. So, well, what it is it's a blanket covering another box inside, so you can probably see that. You see there's another box. I'm peeling back a blanket. Let me go ahead and get this. I'm gonna have to wrestle with it a little bit, and the camera's right here, so let me just get this off of here and then I'll open up the second box. Alright, so here's the inner box. I don't know if there's really any padding in the inner box. Is that the top of the unit? Yeah, it looks like that might be the top of the unit, but you know, I'll see what kind of padding is in here. I'm not too sure, but anyways, he enclosed a piece of paper here that just says, you know, unit is in for repair and restore. He mentions full restoration. Thank you in advance for taking in my unit. Yeah, no problem. Hope it's all intact. So anyways, let me get this second box open. Yeah, there's just some pieces of like 3 pieces of cardboard or something like that laid on top before you actually get to the unit. So it was lightly packaged. So I hope everything is okay. There's a little bit of packaging, a little bit of padding here. I'm going to lift it out. A little bit of this padding in the front to protect the face, the knobs, and all that stuff. And I'm looking down the crack in here, and I don't see anything that's bent, like any of the toggle switches or anything. It doesn't look like anything's pushed in. I can't be sure. It looks like the dial glass is intact. So let me get this out of the out of the box and get it up on the table and just hope that everything is all right. So let's go from there. Okay guys, here we are. Let me maybe turn up the exposure a couple notches. We have here another Pioneer model SX1010. I've been working on a lot of these, and I've been working on some that I didn't even do any video footage on. I did video footage on a few of them, but I've been getting a lot of these SX1010s in, and I've worked on a lot of them over time just in general. So yeah, I'm happy to report that the exterior looks good. I'll zoom in a bit on the knobs. Let me loosen up the tripod there so I can kind of move back and forth. There we go. So everything is looking pretty good. Let me drop the exposure down a notch, I think. Yeah, right about there. So yeah, no broken knobs, no bent toggle switches or anything like that. No cracked or broken dial glass. Looking pretty good. Let me go ahead and spin it around so we can take a look at the rear. And here's the rear. Looking good. Nothing's busted. None of the input jacks or output jacks. Speaker connects there. Yeah, everything's intact. I'm happy to report. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. Pan around. That's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. Pardon the jumpy camera movement there. So yeah. And also too, the actual wood on here looks pretty darn good. Let me peek around the side here. There is a little, I noticed there's a crack here. I'm gonna zoom in on this because I want the customer to see this, but it doesn't look bad, and I don't know if this was here, but both sides here, this side, the top, let me take a peek at the other side here. Look pretty darn good as far as, I don't see any big gouges or scratches. The case actually looks pretty clean, so that's good. But I am going to zoom in on one corner there. Let me do that. So as you can see here, there's this crack in the case, the rear corner. I don't know if that was there. The owner will know. If not, well, in the grand scheme of things, considering the way this was packaged, a bit on the light side, if this is all that's going on, then that's still dodging a bullet. The thing that concerns me is when impacts occur, the way that energy is transferred internally. Sometimes, there might not be any damage to the inside, especially when you're dealing with like blunt force impacts. The outside will look okay, but the energy that's transferred inside will crack a circuit board, bust some parts loose, things like that. So we're not out of the woods yet, and even later on I might find something that I don't see during this quick inspection when I pop the cover. So that's one thing I want to throw out too, is that even if everything looks okay inside, until I really dig in and start disassembling things to perform the work that I'm going to perform, I might find something that, whoa, I didn't see that, and something's busted. So again, I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be gloom and doom on this topic, but facts are the facts, and we'll see when I actually get to work on it. But at least let me alleviate further worry, and we'll at least take a look inside to make sure that there's nothing obvious sitting there floating around or cracked or otherwise damaged. So let me go ahead and get to that. Alright, so here we are looking into the top side here. Okay, and so far so good. I don't notice anything that looks busted loose or any of these boards here that are cracked. I haven't removed these I haven't removed these covers yet, but I'll get around to doing that, and I'm not going to do it in this video section here. Eventually, when I get to doing the work that I'm going to do in here, I'll do all that. But I'm just looking for immediate signs of damage, trauma, and I don't see any. And I got the cover off the back. I'll spin that around in just a moment, but first I do want to mention that this was sent to me for a full restoration, as I pointed out a moment ago. And also too, the customer had some complaint that I don't really recall, but I think it had something to do with noise. I don't know if there was an intermittent noise problem or something that was persistent. I'll be getting in touch with him and running some things by him. So in regard to a full restoration, one thing I will point out, and a lot of you guys will find it interesting, is that This unit was recapped, and it was a recent recap. I'll zoom in and I'll talk about a few things in that regard. For example, yeah, I could tell it was a fairly recent recap, electrolytic recapping. And for example, the main filters down here, I think those are some Cornell Dublier 22,000 mic, 80 volt caps, 105C, and they're fairly new. I haven't looked at any date codes on them or whatever, but I might see if I can find those and post them up here somewhere. So also too, all of the boards on the top side have been electrolytically recapped electrolytically. So there's that. So you have some, you know, audio grade caps, some Nichicon, some UKTs. You got some of these Worth caps, some fine gold caps up here. You got some more fine gold caps. I think there's an Alna cap up here. I don't know if it's one of those Silmic 2 caps or whatever. I can't really tell if it's a Silmic cap, but yeah, a lot of audio grade stuff here, and on the amplifier boards as well. Let me rotate this around. There's not a lot of electrolytics on these amplifier boards, but the ones that are present. Let me bear with me on the camera work here. Okay, this isn't Hollywood. Anyways, so yeah, there's a fine gold cap tucked behind here. I think there's a KL, UKL, low leakage cap here. I think another Alna cap. I'm venturing to guess that this person, you know, was going audio grade crazy in here. Yeah, which is fine. Which is fine on these boards. Anyways, no big deal. But I don't know. The point is, the reason why I say that, I don't know if yeah, I think this is a Silmic cap. Alna's audio grade stuff. But anyways, moral of the story is that it's been recapped. All these boards have been recapped here. I don't know what's underneath these covers, you know, in the tuner section here. I really don't know. I don't know if these, you know, if these areas were recapped or not. So there's that, and I'm going to turn her around. And one thing I want to say before I do that, the work in here that I see is good recapping work. That's all I can say at this point, is that the recapping itself, as far as the yeah, you know, the arrangement of the caps, you know, they're not all cattywampus and bent here and bent there. They're pretty straight. It looks like the person that did this was careful, and everything looks nice. Their choice of caps in this area, obviously they were thinking in terms of quality, so there's that. Now, I can't vouch for the connections on the back of the board, their soldering and skills and all that, but I would venture a guess that if they were conscientious enough to use good quality caps and so forth, then, yeah, you know, they probably at least have enough practice under their belt, whoever this person was, or if it was a shop, then obviously they have enough practice under their belt to execute good solder joints. So let me go ahead and flip around to the back side. We're looking at the power supply board. Some of you know that, and these are notorious for getting hot, and you can see the discoloration in here and all that. So I was talking about earlier that the execution of the recapping is good. Whoever did it did a good job. They were conscientious about the positioning, making sure everything is nice and straight, all that. And once I start looking at the connections on the back of boards and all that, I will know more about their soldering skills. As I pointed out a moment ago, I have a feeling they're probably good. Anyways, the choice of caps, though, comes into question. So that's why I think this person was more of a recapper. I could be wrong about that. I don't know if, you know, their skill extends a little bit beyond just, you know, recapping, and I kind of semi-joked a little earlier about the person was audio grade crazy. And that, you know, that's the case here. And I say that because these selection of caps here are not the best choice for the power supply, especially being that this power supply gets really hot. And there you go. I'll talk about that more in just a second here. But there's, you know, although these will work, you know, they're going to do the job, but there's caps that are better suited, that are more ideal for this application. As you know, in power supplies, you have more demand as far as heavier ripple currents, heavier filtering that needs to take place. There's more, you know, electrical wear and tear, like I said, and there's caps that are better suited with better characteristics in terms of higher ripple current handling capabilities. In other words, power supply stuff. And these are not them. These are good caps in and of themselves, but not a real super good choice. Now these UKTs here have a 105 degree C temperature rating, which is a little bit better because of the, you know, the heat concentration in this area. These are 85 C. The fine gold caps in here. Then you got some KWs, the UKTs, and all that. So now some might say, well, originally the original caps that were installed by the manufacturer were 85 degrees C. Yeah, true, and they held up for decades, in most cases anyways. But why not just put higher temperature caps in here, higher endurance caps that are designed for longer life, you know, longer hours, so to speak, but longer life, higher endurance, in other words, and that have better characteristics, like I said, in terms of ESR and ripple current, and just things like that I already pointed out. Okay, so if we look through this opening here, what we're looking at here is, you know, we're looking at the back of the tone board, and if we look in here, you can see that there's some more of these audio grade UKTs. I see a fine gold cap. You might even be able to see it right in there. So I was kind of wondering about that a moment ago, to what extent this person went with an electrolytic recap, and it looks like they may have done all the boards and all that. So that's good. So let me go ahead and pull back out. And judging by looking at the bottom of these main filters, their soldering looks good, nice and tidy. So if that sort of sets the precedence for the other work that they did as far as the soldering on the boards, then hopefully I'm not going to have to touch up their work, and I'm kind of thinking I'm not going to have to, so that's good. So I'll know more again when I pull out the boards, but let me go ahead and change views otherwise. So as I approach the conclusion here, I think that really what needs to be done in here is, aside from going through and assuring that everything is okay with this individual's work or whatever, is focus on connection issues. That's a big problem in these, as is the case in a lot of equipment across the board. I'm not just referring to the SX1010s, but for example, you really got to be sure that all of these posts, that all these wires are wrapped to, that all the solder joints are stout, and check the back of the amp boards. Obviously, make sure that all the solder joints are looking good, and reflow what needs to be reflowed. So yeah, connection issues all around globally throughout this thing as I pull boards. And also too, I want to mention that it looks like the original transistors are in here, and some of you may know that there are some transistors on board these units. For example, the 2SA726s, which I believe are present on this board. I think they use them in the diff pair, the differential pair positions on these boards. But anyways, yeah, the 2SA726s, there's a 2SC 1451s, you know, these here that should be replaced, that are known to become problematic. And I do believe they're on the poop list of transistors that sometimes get dodgy and kind of fickle and all that. So it's good to get those out of here. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing is transistor testing. I want to pull some of the transistors out in this unit, just other transistors as well, and check them out in a little bit more detail, especially on the amp boards, and check their leakage and their gain and all that stuff, and really just go through and wring everything out as far as that goes. Make sure that the amplifier boards are absolutely stout. Tolerance check components. I don't know if the people that were working in here, if they were just interested in the recapping aspect of things, but it's a good idea to go through and tolerance check all of the resistors on the amp boards and diodes, and check everything out really good. Make sure everything is within tolerance. And again, connections. Get the old transistors that are on the poop list out of there and do what needs to be done. Replace the two SA726s with like some KSA 992s, things like that. And I have some replacements. I'll have to look at my inventory for the 1451s. I don't know what I have, but anyways, get those out of there, stuff like that. And one last thing before I close this out, and I'm sure I forgot other stuff. Oh well, that's how it goes. Let me change views once again so we're not staring at the same thing. Plus, I want to point something else out. So it also looks like they installed a brand spanking new relay. So all good stuff that they did. So that's why I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to find anything real unfavorable with their work. But as I get into this thing and start actually going in and actually doing the work that I'm going to do, if I find stuff, I'm obviously going to point it out at that time. I can't cover everything right now. So one last thing, and let me change views again. So the other thing is the controls. Now, I can see a lot of the work that was done on the surface, on the boards and all that, but I really don't know. And I can't tell just by looking, obviously, at the controls if they were serviced. So I talk about multi-flush cleaning. I'm not going to get into that in detail, but sometimes when people go through and they clean controls, they'll spritz the controls a little bit, and kind of work them a little bit, spritz them a little bit. But I found that it's a good idea to dive a little bit deeper, even in the flushing of controls category of things, and that's why I like to do a multi-flush cleaning. Really flush them out with copious amounts of contact cleaner, hit them once, exercise them, let things loosen up a bit, hit them again, let things loosen up a little more. So every time I'm flooding the controls, exercising them, and flooding them again, my thing is I want to flush out, try to break up anything that's in there, maybe old lubricants, whatever, who knows, and just get the stuff out as good as I can with a multi-flush cleaning. And then after everything's said and done there, add a drop or two of some fader lube, work it in and all that. Yes, it's better ultimately to be able to open up the controls and clean them by hand with a swab and some solvent and all that stuff, and really do a thorough job. Clean the wiper contacts, things like that. But sometimes that's not practical. The switches aren't, and pots just aren't the type that you can take apart real easy without potentially damaging them and going through a big to-do. But some of them that are designed to be opened up and cleaned and whatnot, even that can get pretty expensive, because you multiply that by X amount of switches and pots and the time it takes and all that. Sometimes it's better if you can source them just to source a replacement if you're going to go that route, or source some replacements. But if they need to be replaced. Otherwise, the best type of cleaning is opening up the controls and doing it like that. But again, the next best thing is a multi-flush cleaning, a very thorough multi-flush cleaning, and I don't know if that's been done with this, or if it was just a quick spritz and a little exercising of the controls. Sometimes some people feel that that's good enough. I don't. But I have no way of knowing. So I may end up servicing all the controls and, like I said, doing the other stuff that I just mentioned. Okay. So, and I'm sure there's some things I didn't mention that I'll end up mentioning in the other videos when I start going into the actual work. So that's about it, guys. I'm going to cut this one here so it doesn't become a big old evaluation video. Well, it already kind of has. So, as I always say, peace, love, music, and the vintage audio that brings it to your ears. Till next time, y'all take care.
This has been a Spinning Head production.